My friends, good evening. I didn't want to talk about it yet, but it keeps crossing my mind. The story of the fire in Crans-Montana, in Valais, the canton of Valais in Switzerland. I saw it. I didn't want to pick up the news again. I saw it. When it came out in the Italian press, it was a friend who called me. He told me the Italian press says that the manager of the club, she left with the cash register, he said. At the time of the fire, she saved the cash register. You see, it still got to me, even though I have no illusions about human nature. It's true that I didn't expect that. It struck me. I hope that's not true, honestly. I'm telling you what I hope. I hope that for all of us. I hope that for the planet. Actually, no, she didn't do that. She just ran away and took her phone. But maybe it's automatic, just a reflex. If there's a fire or problem, you automatically grab your keys and car and run, not out of selfishness, but out of habit. So that you acted on instinct, when you left, you didn't think. I hope that's what it is, honestly, but that's what I mean. If you saved the car, you could have left the car and maybe grabbed a kid by the collar and pulled him outside. You see what I mean? It could have been a bit more interesting. Now, what happens is that we say the emergency exits were closed. Emergency exits are very often closed in nightclubs. You can't count on them. Why? Because there's a lot of traffic, there are a lot of thefts, and to prevent thefts and trafficking, when I say thefts and all that, it's, for example, imagine a typical case. The servers who are out of the boss's sight, they're on the floor below. What they can do is bring in alcohol through a back door, alcohol that they brought themselves, that they bought at the supermarket, and that they're going to sell to the customer. The customer asks for champagne, they bring it to him, but it's just from the supermarket. They bought it, sell it to him, take the money, and that's it. So to avoid this kind of trafficking, what the bosses do, they always have to make sure themselves about their own security, especially the security of their property. I'm not talking about the customers, the security of their property. And it's guaranteed by, for example, closing the emergency exits in the business, just between us, in the business. I have a very good friend who worked in that business, in the business. You can't file a complaint when you get ripped off by the waiters. You know that you don't have the right, well, you have the right to file a complaint. You can file a complaint. But I'm telling you what happens. Imagine you find out that there are two waiters who are in cahoots and they took you. Let's say 200,000 euros since the beginning of last year. You realize that you took 200,000 euros. You take them to court. You usually don't get anything. Well, there you go. These poor guys, they don't have any money. What's he going to do? Sell his scooter with the data. That's it. You're not going to get anything from them, okay? But what's going to happen? The taxes are going to come. The tax authorities are going to audit you because they'll say, yeah, but you had 200,000 euros taken from you. So in your declaration, you reported 200,000 euros less. So what we're going to do is reassess your declaration. Whatever you earned, we're going to add 200,000 euros and you'll pay us taxes on that. You'll pay us taxes on it. So yes, it's true that you didn't get the money. It was stolen from you, but still it came in, or it should have come in. We don't care because the tax authorities act like your business partner in a way. Which means that the bosses in those circles are forced to handle the security of their business themselves. So, of course, in that context, very, very often, the emergency exits of the clubs are closed, locked, or blocked, or something like that. Of course, I think the authorities should make sure, shouldn't they go check these kinds of places and see if the emergency exit is closed? We close everything, the place, it's over. But you see, it doesn't happen because there are reasons. Look at Crans-Montana. The last time they were inspected was in 2020, the last time they were checked. We hadn't even heard about COVID yet, just to tell you, it was a very long time ago. So there are no inspections, no fire extinguisher, no fire alarm, and there's literally flammable foam. I wanted to say, so obviously I'll say it was just a tragedy waiting to happen. If it hadn't happened on December 31st, it would have happened on June 12th. I mean, it was just a matter of time. As they say, another thing I wanted to tell you, there are a lot of people, a lot of families who lost their children in this story. And as parents, it reminds us of something, and that's very hard. We have two levels of protection. When we have to protect our loved ones, there are two levels of protection. The first is against imaginable and foreseeable dangers. For example, if he's riding a motorcycle, he must wear a helmet and ensure the motorcycle is checked and in good condition. You make sure he has training. Okay, you make sure he has had training. Why do we do all this? For example, if he falls, his head is protected. You see, we're trying to anticipate accidents. Or the motorcycle is well maintained to make sure that an accident isn't caused by a brake failure or something like that. That's something we can say is relatively predictable. It's a situation we can control pretty well. Of course, from time to time, there are unexpected events or sudden jumps that make the accident happen anyway. But the hardest part isn't that. The hardest part is when we have to protect our own, protect against the unexpected, against the unpredictable. That's really hard. And to protect ourselves against the unpredictable, we need rules. We need rules for life, and these rules for life are not. You never know when they'll protect you. You do this all the time, okay? When you wear a seatbelt, as long as you haven't had an accident, the seatbelt is for predictable dangers. It's not for the unpredictable danger. So what is it? You're protecting yourself against what danger exactly? Are you protecting yourself against the danger of hitting something? You brake late, the car slides, bam, you hit the guy who stopped at the red light. If you're not wearing a seatbelt, you'll hit the edge of the steering wheel, things like that, okay, or against the windshield or something like that. We can imagine that kind of accident, and that's what you're facing. If you haven't had the accident, the seatbelt hasn't protected you yet. We agree that if you drive for 5 years without ever wearing a seatbelt, but you never had an accident, you can see that whether you wore it or not, it wouldn't have made any difference. All right, but the day it's useful, you know it. Okay, that's the simple part, let's say, of the everyday safety equation. The hard part is when you have to use life rules, safety rules, without ever getting any feedback. You'll never get any feedback whether it saved you or not. You'll never know. You see, for example, I don't know, me, I used to take my 3 or 4-year-old daughter to a shopping mall in the United Kingdom. I would walk next to her, and I always made sure that no one could get to her before me. If she walks fast, I do too. If she runs, I run. I always have to stay in a circle around her so no one else gets in first. If I see someone coming and clearly heading toward her, I move ahead to get there quickly. To her side before he gets there. What was I protecting myself from? I don't know. Maybe I protected him to protect myself. Maybe it was pointless. I don't know, but it doesn't stop me. I'm just giving you an example. In London, there's a large bug, not sure what it is. So there's a balcony where people look at a gallery. And I was telling you that one day there was a kid, 7 or 8 years old, he freaked out. He came, grabbed him, threw him overboard. The kid survived but was badly hurt and spent months in the hospital. I was glad to tell you that. All that, but just to tell you, this kind of unexpected event is usually covered when you're in a mindset of protecting yourself against the unexpected. That means I'm on a balcony. In a place like that, I always have to keep a certain distance, be the first one near my child, not someone else. Why? I don't know. I have no idea. That's it. That's the hardest part of personal safety. It's not about the motorcycle helmet, all that. That's basic. The motorcycle helmet, the seatbelt, that's basic. In this specific case, too, there were young people, there were kids who were 14, 15 years old. We have victims who are 14, 15 years old. Back then, I don't know how it is today, but back then we didn't go into that kind of place. Under 18, we couldn't get in, except there were a lot of people under 18 minors. And apparently it was something pretty tolerated around here, wasn't it, in the region? I'm saying this in a broad sense from my perspective. Was it normal? It's not, from what I've heard, it's not a one-off. It's not like, yes, it happened that one night. I don't know where they came from, right? It seems like there's a certain level of tolerance. There was a certain acceptability in letting young minors into a club where alcohol flows freely and all that. So obviously, these aren't people who need to be supervised. You know what I mean? They're children. At 14, I was putting coins on train tracks. I wasn't any better than anyone else. You know what I mean? Nobody should brag about it. That's why I'm telling you this. The thing is, we're still shocked that you just go along with everyone else, okay? We allowed children, minors, to go partying past midnight in a bar with alcohol and all that. And of course, well, there you go. The danger came in the form of a fire. They're just kids. They don't have the experience. They don't have the perspective. You see me? Well, you know me. I mean, I would have gone outside the moment they set off the first thing, the first incident. I would have gone outside. I'm passing messages to someone on WhatsApp, all that. Then I would have come back. That's all. I wouldn't have bothered anyone. The first bathroom fire, I'm outside. Well, now when it comes to fire, if I see open flames on the ceiling, I can tell you I would have acted, kicking things, you know. But the thing is, you realize that it was kids who didn't realize, who didn't understand the danger. They filmed everything until the exit was closed. After that, it wasn't possible anymore, right? There you go, under surveillance. That's it. That always hits you, you know, because there's this contrast, right? It's a very expensive station. We're in Switzerland. You see, you arrive in this place, it's super clean. You look around, you see this, you feel like, yeah, it's another world, you know? And when you see that, you tend to trust it, okay? But you shouldn't. And actually, I'd like to tell you something before you leave. That's an African thing. I'm telling you, you can take it or leave it. Don't try to force yourself. But in Africa, the more you're in a place that inspires trust, the less you should lower your guard and actually increase your countermeasures. Seuss, let me explain the logic. There's a reason and wisdom behind it. It's just that when you're in a sketchy or shady area, that's all. Instinctively, your instincts will kick in. Don't worry, you don't need to add anything. All your alarms are already on red alert. All right? But when you're in a place you trust, that's when problems can happen. That's it. Instinct, especially the primary one, is mostly dormant, so your intellect must take over. Exactly. That's why you have to increase your vigilance in an unnatural way. Recently, I stayed at a beautiful hotel on Dubai's Palm Jumeirah, the palm-shaped island visible from space. I go into my room, I put down my things, I check how the door opens, click, click, click. I check that it opens and closes. I make sure I can open it even with my eyes closed at night. Imagine a coded lock. She says it's coded, but it's easy to open from the inside. Then I walked to the end of the hallway, found the exit, emergency exit, the other end of the hallway, emergency exit, check the windows, balcony, I go out, balcony, check, I can get to the other side, yes, easily, etc. So I do some checks. It doesn't take anything. It doesn't take any time. I mean, that's it. Then, well, I spend my stay. I have a good time. I appreciate that he hears me. And then nothing happens. We delete the file. Then goodbye, right? But always have that reflex. Always, 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 always have a trick up your sleeve. Always be one step ahead, my friends. Always. What's the worst that could happen? Now, okay, it comes from aviation. I'm telling you, it comes from aviation. Aviation. You can be in a little tourist plane, zzz, like that, and then you can have the instructor. He grabs the throttle, pulls, slows down, you push the stick, your stomach lifts. Then he asks, where would you land now? Now it's the engine, you have an engine failure. Where do you land? That field over there? Oh no, that field is too far, you won't make it. There's a power line there, be careful. No, that's not it. Ideally, you'd land over there if you want. Check the wind direction and the chimney, and notice the altimeter spinning. Now add some throttle and climb to 2,000 feet. You see, what I mean is, and in life, well, that's how it is in navigation, but in life, it's always like that. What's the next move? What's the next dirty trick that could happen? You always ask yourself that question. And for the kids, since they won't ask it themselves, you ask it for them. Thank you, my friends, for listening to this video. All right, that's it. And I'll see you in the next one. See you very soon.